UNESCO declared the year 2011 as the year of the French poet Aimé Fernand David Cesaire, the Chilean poet Pablo Neruda, and the great Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore, to celebrate their contributions to the world literature. The year 2011 is the 150th birth anniversary of Rabindranath Tagore. Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore was a poet, novelist, musician, painter, and playwright. Best known as the first non-European to have received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, Tagore is close to every Indian's heart. Tagore was born in Calcutta, a city that has a long tradition and culture from even before it was known as Calcutta.
The discovery of the ancient archaeological site of Choudhury has shown that this area was continuously inhabited for about 2 millennia. But of course, Calcutta's documented history begins with the arrival of the East India Company in 1690, when the company was consolidating its businesses in Bengal. The company administrator Job Charnock is usually credited as being the founder of the city. This city grew and grew to the point where Queen Victoria, when she was crowned the Empress of India in 1877, Calcutta was the seat of Her Majesty's government.
In the northern part of the city of Calcutta was the family residence of the Tagores called Jorasanki. The Tagores were learned Brahmins that had come to Bengal from Kannauj in the 8th century. In this family of Tagores, the reformers like Ram Mohan Rai found allies who wanted Western ideas to flourish in India and were willing to challenge traditional practices.
As a child, Rabindranath was sent to 4 local schools, but he hated going to school and learned mostly from his brothers at home. He liked music and drawing, and interestingly, liked gymnastics and wrestling. At the age of 8, he wrote his first poetry, and it was about food, and I happen to remember that poem. It goes like this. Am shatto dudhe doli, tahate kodoli doli, সন্দেশ মাখিয়া দিয়া তাতে হাপুস হুপুস শব্দ চারিদিক নিস্তব্ধ পিঁপড়েরা কাঁদিয়া যায় পাতে.
In 1878, Rabindranath went to Brighton, where he did his schooling. Then he came to London and was admitted to University College. But rather than some formal study, he was more interested in learning about British society. He spent some quiet time at the British Museum and contributed a series of letters with laudatory impressions of English society and its people. He also became interested in English music and later used some of that style in his opera Valmiki Pratibha. But then there were other tunes that were based on traditional Indian classical music. And one can say that he was bridging the Eastern and Western music, which was to live on in music specially composed by Tagore, known as Rabindra Sangeet. Although he enjoyed his time in London, but he did not like the weather and returned to India in 1880 without completing any formal course of study. He pursued his artistic and creative talents once back home in Calcutta.
Many of the plays, operas, and the artistic output from the Tagores was possible because they had abundant talent in the family. And most of the family members were majority of the caste, really. They also attracted some of the best names of the times. That included Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. One morning, as he stood on the veranda, looking at the sun as it was just rising through the leafy tops of the trees, he felt as if a covering was falling away from his eyes. and he found the world bathed in a wonderful radiance, with waves of beauty and joy swelling on every side. This radiance pierced in a moment through the folds of sadness and despondency which had accumulated over his heart, and flooded it with this universal light. That very day, the poem Nirjhore Shopnobhango, or as it's known in English, The Awakening of the Waterfall, gushed forth and coursed on like a veritable cascade. আজিয়ে প্রভাতে রবির কর, কেমনে পশিল প্রাণের পর, কেমনে পশিল গুহার আঁধারে প্রভাত পাখির গান, না জানি কেন রে এতদিন পরে জাগিয়া উঠিল প্রাণ।
In 1883, Rabindranath married Bhavatarini Devi, whose name was later changed to Mrinalini Devi. A few weeks before the wedding, his father took him aside and asked him to take an interest in their business of land management and also look after the laborers working on their farm. Rabindranath therefore found himself in the very heart of rural Bengal. It gave him an opportunity to look after the peasants working on the farm, and also his time spent in this area had a great influence on his work in the future. গগনে গরজে মেঘ ঘন বরষা, কুলে একা বসে আছি নাহি ভরসা, রাশি রাশি ভাড়া ভাড়া, ধান কাটা হলো সারা, ভরা নদী কুরো ধারা, খর পরশা, কাটিতে কাটিতে ধান এলো বরষা.
By the time Tagore was 40, he had written stories, poems, and essays that had become quite a collection.
In 1912, Tagore took a trip to England to study the Western methods and also to discuss his methods of education in Santiniketan. With him, he took a notebook containing the translation of his poems and songs in English. He showed these to William Rothenstein, whom he had met earlier during Rothenstein's visit to India. Rothenstein was so moved by these works that he sent a copy to the Irish poet Yeats.
Well, Yeats, of course, was a great poet of the time. And this was the time when war was raging in Europe. As a poet, William Butler Yeats saw in these poems what the world really needed, a bit of sanity. He introduced these poems to a gathering of poets and intellectuals. He said, "I know of no man in my time who has done anything in the English language to equal these lyrics. Even as I read them in these literal prose translations, they are exquisite in style and thought." Gitanjali was published in England in the same year, and really there is no other example of any poet gaining world fame in the same manner. Tagore won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, and the knighthood came in 1915.
Rabindranath toured Japan and America and made appeal for peace. He said, "The world peace could be achieved only by intellectual cooperation between nations." He projected a vision that the spiritual unity will come only if every human being was to contribute to the dawn of a new era. The war came to an end in 1918, and while Europe got busy in exploring peaceful ways to restore itself, in India an unrest was simmering. During the war, British government was promising that India will move towards self-rule. But in March 1919, a law, the Rowlatt Act, was passed, indefinitely extending emergency measures. As a protest against the Rowlatt Act, Mahatma Gandhi launched a movement of passive resistance. But rumors of Gandhi's arrest led to violence breaking out in many parts of the country. The government took steps to deal with this unrest in a heavy-handed manner. Martial law was declared in Punjab, and that led to one of the most shameful acts of the British rule in India, the massacre at the Jallianwala Bagh at Amritsar. He was so upset that he wrote to the Viceroy, condemning the killing in Punjab.
Your Excellency, The enormity of the measures taken by the government in Punjab for quelling some local disturbances has, with a rude shock, revealed to our minds the helplessness of our position as British subject in India.
And finished by saying,
And these are the reasons for which have painfully compelled me to ask Your Excellency, with due deference and regret, to relieve me of my title of knighthood, which I had the honor to accept from His Majesty the King at the hands of your predecessor, for whose nobleness of heart I still entertain great admiration.
The next 10 years he travelled across the world pleading for peace and stressing the importance of intellectual cooperation.
In 1931, his 70th birthday was celebrated, and the Golden Book of Tagore was a testimony to the affection the intellectuals of the world bore for Rabindranath. Its sponsors were Romain Rolland from France, Albert Einstein from Germany, the poet Costes Balamas from Greece, Jagdish Chandra Bose, and Mahatma Gandhi. Rabindranath Tagore gave his last message, that was called Crisis in Civilization, on his 80th birthday. The message concerned with the state of the so-called modern civilization that was basing itself on violent and barbaric means. 3 months after his 80th birthday, Tagore left Shantiniketan for the last time to go to his ancestral home in Calcutta. And when he departed from this world, he left behind a heritage of ideas and ideals that can never lose their purpose and meaning. In the present context, as I see the world around me embroiled in war and destruction, still engaged in barbaric and violent means, I begin to feel despondent about a future. I remind myself that I should not commit the gravest sin of losing faith in man, but acknowledge that the world today needs more than ever to relate to the philosophy that Rabindranath Tagore so passionately advocated.
Chitto jetha, bhoy shunno, uchcho jetha shir, gyan jetha mukto, jetha griher prachir.
Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into the heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.